Our next grammar topic in this chapter continues our study of the subjunctive. We're going to study how the subjunctive is used to express doubt and denial. The subjunctive really comes down to how we see reality. We construct reality through our thoughts. And so, in regards to this topic, it's really about what reality we have built up for ourselves in our head. What you think or believe or not is your reality. What the subjunctive comes down to is what is objective and what is subjective. So, when do we use the subjunctive and why? On the surface level, we can remember how and when to use the subjunctive when we remember the acronym wedding. We've already studied three cases, three letters here. Wishes, which can be recommendations and suggestions. Recomendar que, insistir en que, sugerir que, etc., etc. Desire, querer que, preferir que, pedir que, and impersonal expressions. All of those expressions that basically begin with es or no es. Es bueno, es mejor, es necesario que, es esencial que, etc., etc., which, as we discussed then, is really a subjective reality. What's necessary for you may not be necessary for me. What's important to you may not be important to me. And so, until this point, the subjunctive has been used to demonstrate a conflict of interest. There are always two subjects. When we talk about the subjunctive, I think we also have to talk about the indicative. It's hard to think about verbs in any other form, but really we have different tenses, and now we're talking about moods. What is the indicative mood then? The indicative indicates an objective reality. It's a reality that we all share. It's normalized by normal verb conjugations. They follow a strict set of rules. So an AR verb is going to look like an AR verb. An ER verb is going to look like an ER verb. We can all share these rules and agree upon this reality no matter what time or tense is indicated. Here are some examples. There are many forms of the indicative. It occurs in the past, the present, and the future, but you got to have some evidence for it. As I've mentioned before, there are 14 verb conjugations in Spanish. Only about 3 of them use the subjunctive. So let's get into it. Why do we use the subjunctive with doubt? Well, what's your reality? The word for doubt is duda, and therefore to doubt is dudar. Yo dudo que los extraterrestres existan. Though existan comes from the verb existir, it looks like an AR verb. It's the opposite of what is quote unquote normal. If you were to say existen, you have spoken aliens into existence just by using the verb in one way or another. Be careful how you use the verbs if you're not talking about an objective reality. No dudes. Don't doubt this. This is a command. We're going to win. No dudes que vamos a ganar. It's true. We can also use these phrases to express our security in what we believe. ¿No estás seguro de que tengamos un examen mañana? It may or may not be true. I'm just not sure. Tengamos un examen mañana. By itself, it cannot be used. But with an expression, no estás seguro or segura de que, we must change the verb tener into the subjunctive. Estoy seguro que hay unicornios. Well, we can take that first clause away and just simply say, hay unicornios. There are unicorns. It's my reality. Don't mess with it. Then there are those expressions that deny one existence or another, one reality or another. What do you think or believe? We can construct our own realities. Ella niega que Coach K sea el mejor entrenador del mundo. Y claro, ella está loca, porque eso no es la realidad. You can deny it all you want to. Still my reality. It's pretty objective. Yo sé que Coach K es el mejor entrenador del mundo. ¿No creen que nieve hoy? Nieve comes from the verb nevar. That's why it looks like an ER verb, because we have to use the subjunctive. They don't believe that it's going to snow today. Notice how in that translation we're using the future. But we don't use the future of the subjunctive. To express a future probability, just use the present subjunctive. ¿Crees que va a nevar mañana? Do you believe it's going to snow tomorrow? Again, if you believe it, that's your reality. No pienso que tengas razón. I don't think you're right. Tengas is from tener. Because it's not my reality, you are not correct. I must use a subjunctive to express that. ¿Piensas que el avión saldrá a tiempo? Do you think the plane is going to leave on time? The form you see here is the future. Saldrá is an irregular verb in the future tense. But as I said before, do not use the future in the subjunctive. There is a future indicative, however. Finally, we come to the G in wedding. The G is just a category to lump a whole bunch of other stuff in there. It includes the phrases quizá or quizás, there is no difference, tal vez, and ojalá. Whether or not you use the subjunctive or the indicative with these phrases and verbs they're not verbs, I'm sorry, with these phrases indicates how sure you are of its existence. For example, quizá can be translated as perhaps. Quizá ella tenga razón. Perhaps she's right. But because I've used the subjunctive with it, I'm not really convinced that she is. Quizá yo estoy equivocado. Perhaps I'm wrong. That's more of an admission that I can accept, rather than quizá ella tenga razón. Tal vez, you can interpret as maybe. Tal vez llueva hoy. Maybe it's going to rain today. I'm not sure. Versus tal vez llueve hoy. There's a higher probability of the second. It may not be here. If you want to think about it, maybe it's on the other side of the world. Tal vez llueve hoy in China. Maybe it's raining in China. The probability of that is greater than when I say llueva. Finally, we have ojalá. This is a unique expression that we're going to explore later in the chapter because of what it does to the verb that comes after it. Ojalá comes from the Arabic. Spanish is influenced by Arabic in many ways. It comes from the expression loosely translated as O Allah, God willing. It's up to Allah. This expression always uses the subjunctive and only sometimes uses que, as in ojalá que. You don't necessarily need that que there. In the present, we can interpret ojalá as I hope, because there's a probability of it occurring in the future. Ojalá que llueva hoy. I hope it rains today. And it might. Versus when it's used in the past. Yes, there is a past subjunctive. There's not a future subjunctive, but there is a past. And when we use ojalá with the past subjunctive, it means I wish. It's something that you can dream of, but unlike your Disney songs, it's not going to come true. Ojalá que yo tuviera $1,000,000. I wish I had $1,000,000. I don't. I never will. It's not a possibility. We'll explore that a little bit later in this chapter. That only leaves one letter in wedding, the E, for emotions. But we'll cover that in the second half of the chapter too.